morning. So, last week, see, forward, this happened. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. And when this happened, I immediately got texted by all of my friends who knew I was coming to Montenegro, and they said, "Can I speak at your funeral?" I said, "Yes, I'm going to actively try not to get murdered when I go to Montenegro." And they said, "Well, Heather, you are our last hope. You are our last hope to go over to Montenegro and make a really good impression, to let Americans aren't really, what Trump is." And I'm like, "Do you know who you're sending over as a diplomat for America?" This is, that was me pregnant at 30 weeks with my second child, and it's not a lit cigarette. I'll just say that. My name is Heather Armstrong. Again, my website is Deuce. I have been blogging for 17 years. 17 years. But now, I'm no longer a blogger. I am a high-powered social media influencer. Hashtag ad, hashtag sponsored, hashtag my life is for sale. I have 1.5 million Twitter followers, which means I can sell a tweet, no joke, for $5,000. That's on the low end. Kim Kardashian can get up to 30 million. So I am responsible for the blight known as mommy blogging. I got so good at it, the New York Times called me queen of the mommy bloggers. So if you don't know what mommy blogging is, basically what you do is you exploit your children and their lives for a lot of money. And you basically make it so that they can't grow up to be functioning adults. It's a really, really lucrative business. I brag about it on my Twitter bio. I exploit my children for millions and millions of dollars on my mommy blog. Not many moms can say that. And so what happened is I had this one, and she made for some great content, and I made a ton of money off of her. And then I realized, if I add another one, I can get more money. So I had this one. And it turns out that this is a really sustainable business model. You can just keep doing this. She paid off. The dividends were amazing. And I am, my Marlo, when she came out, she had a dimple, and neither me nor my ex-husband have a dimple. And I was like, oh God, does the mailman have a dimple? So I'm here to talk to you less about the platform that I helped innovate. I didn't invent it, I innovated it. I'm here to talk to you less about the platform and more about the human side of this medium. I'm here to talk to you about what this medium has done for villages that have been lost among women. And I've been blogging for 17 years about my life, and I can be crude, I can be weird, and people think that I'm a mess, and they're absolutely right. But I'm always honest. And I'm 21 weeks pregnant in this photo with my second child. And the reason that I did this is when I was 18 weeks pregnant, I posted that, and everybody was like, "You're not glowing enough. You need to glow more." So I was like, I will show you how to fucking glow, motherfucker. Yes, I am a mommy blogger. Don't challenge me. So I am a little irreverent, as you can tell, and during one of my more irreverent periods, a critic said, "She is peddling a trademarked brand of crazy," which I thought was brilliant, and it's exactly describes what life is like with 2 kids and 2 dogs and working full-time. What does that look like? How do I get out of the house? There's this mess of life that I write about so that we feel less alone, so that those who read me feel less alone. And I will completely admit on my website that I got so frustrated with my 7-year-old who looked at a piece of toast with chocolate on it and said she didn't want to eat it because it didn't look right. And I will admit that I licked my hand and wiped it right down her face. just from her forehead to her chin. I'm not proud of it, but I will admit that I got that frustrated, and I know that those who read me will feel less alone when I do this. And there's an exquisite quality to this medium because we did this ourselves. Nobody was going to give me, who's going to give me a book deal? Who's going to give me a book deal? Who's going to give me a platform on which to speak my story? This is not working. Where to go? This is the beautiful thing about what we did is I wrote stories about my children and pregnancy and postpartum depression and raising 2 dogs and skin cancer, home ownership, and trying to get into schools, the death of a dog, divorce. I wrote about it all, and none of it was polished. None of it had rounded edges. All of it was raw and honest and real. Nothing was staged. It was, in a word, authentic. We showed the dirty side of the room. And there's an artist who was really popular in the early 90s. Her name is Phair. Most of you are too young to probably know. Phair wrote a song called Nashville, and in it is one of the most beautiful lyrics I've ever heard, and it says, "I can't imagine any better terms than naked, half awake, about to shave and go to work. I won't decorate my love." And she's talking about a romantic love, but that, for me, is exactly how I feel about my life and my kids and my dogs and work and the chaos of life. Like, it is all about waking up with my kids and the dinner routine and, the scuffed knee and the questions of like, Mom, am I ever gonna fall in love? Like, getting down to the dirty side of the room and showing that brought me an enormous audience. That is how I, in 2005, was one of the first personal bloggers to ever run an ad on her website. I signed with an ad network called Federated Media, and I was going to run banner advertisements against the audience that I had, which would bring me a lot of money because I was exploiting my children. And when I announced to my audience, I'm going to start making money doing this, half of the audience was like, this is a great idea. This is amazing. And the other half was like, oh my God, you're a total sellout. How could you possibly make money on a blog? And then there was one critic who said, this website now sucks sweaty goat balls. I don't know what that means. I have no clue what that means. But I thought that is that has to go on my website. And I remember when I sat down to design it, and to put it on my website, I thought, if I do this, an advertiser is not going to be happy at all. And then I knew when I had that thought that I had to design the banner because otherwise I was betraying everything that I stood for. And I got a call 2 days later from my ad network, and they said, hey, can you just give us a warning about the sweaty goat balls next time? And it turns out 2 advertisers pulled out. One of them was Disney, which I don't know why Disney would pull away from sweaty goat balls. But in 2010 and in 2011, a confluence of events would happen that would change the landscape of this forever. And I don't think that it's necessarily a good change. So in October of 2010, we had Instagram. March of 2010, Pinterest. Snapchat, July of 2011. And then everybody's mom got on Facebook in 2011. So what we did is we went on Instagram, or we went on Facebook, or we went on Snapchat, and that's where we stayed. Nobody wanted to read a story anymore. Nobody did. And at the same time, the banner ads that were paying my salary, the bottom completely fell out of it. What used to sell for $7, a computer came in and then sold it for 20 cents. So this confluence of events created this weird user behavior, and I call it the Pinteristification of the internet. Everything is beautiful, everything is styled, everything is amazing and fun to look at. And if you don't remember when this happened, then you probably aren't familiar with Pumpkin the raccoon, who has 1.1 million followers on Instagram. Pumpkin has got a reality show now and 3 book deals. The problem with Pumpkin is I kind of want to tell the people that he lives with, you're living with a raccoon. Do you know this? Like, you're gonna wake up dead. But here's the thing, I could look at that raccoon all day long. I don't want to go read a story about a mom. I want to look at the raccoon. And then you've got Harlow and Sage. They've got a 3-book deal, 1.1 million followers. I could look at this dog all day long. Bunny Rabbits, almost 900,000 followers. This dog is now doing ads for hotels. And then we have a cat selling a watch. Can the cat tell time? I don't know. Is that important? I don't know. And then we have a dog doing an ad for a security system, which, I'm sorry, but if you're a dog, you should be the security system. Otherwise, you're not a dog, you're a cat selling watches. That ad makes no sense, but this ad, you may not know her, you may know her. Her name is Jen Selter. She's just an average person who started putting copious amounts of photos of her backside on Instagram. She now has over 9 million followers. And this is her backside doing an ad for some linens. She makes a lot of money. Her backside. So, beginning in about 2011, the only way to make a living doing this anymore was sponsored content. You had to work with a brand in order to make money. And so what has happened is that users are being conditioned to value the voices of influencers that are increasingly being homogenized. There's no differentiation. All the voices and all the photos look the same. And it's like, what is it? Why has this change happened? What is causing this to change? Well, I'm partly responsible for that. I take credit. A little story. Back in 2013, Banana Republic, which is an American clothing brand, came to my ad network and said, we want to send some people on a weekend getaway, and we want them to write about it, have a party. I said, okay. You want me to dress in some nice clothes and take my friends into the mountains? That sounds like fine. And then they said, well, we want to involve your gay assistant and his boyfriend. I said, okay, I will do that. So you want me to get dressed up, go to the mountains, involve my gay assistant and his boyfriend, and you want me to drive this car around for 3 days. And then they said, while you're up there, could you do something fun like riding horses? And when my assistant, he's a beautiful gay assistant with his beautiful boyfriend, and when my assistant saw the photos, he said, oh my, Heather, this just wrote itself. You have to call this post Brokeback Banana. Okay, so really quickly, I was really, really scared coming here because I had a really bad experience with the German audience who didn't get any of my references. And Vaja, I told him, I said, does everybody speak English? And he assured me. But I am on a taxi trip, by the way, down the coast on Sunday. I'm with Aza. And yes, hello. And our taxi driver, first of all, he took us to a vineyard and got us drunk, shit-faced, and on the drive back was talking to me. And Aza was passed out in the back seat, and I'm talking to the taxi driver. And he told me, he said, I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning, and I only got home at 4. And I said, are you telling me this while you're driving this winding road up the hill? And he said, well, sometimes I have trouble sleeping. I said, oh, I do too. And he says, really? I said, yeah, I have horrible insomnia, and I have to take medication for it. And he said, what medication do you take? And I said, oh, sometimes I take Valium to sleep. And he said, no, you don't. I said, yeah, I take Valium to sleep every night. And he said, you do not take that. I said, I've taken it for 7 years. I don't know, why are you arguing with me? And he said, no one in the world takes helium to go to sleep. Don't try to convince me otherwise. I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. helium. So I was like, are they gonna know Brokeback Mountain? And in this post about Brokeback Banana, I wrote about going horseback riding. And I don't know if any of you have been horseback riding, but if you haven't been in a while, or you have never been, it starts to hurt about 5 minutes in, and every part of your body just starts screaming at you. And we did that for over 2 hours. And about 30 minutes into it, I was counting my breaths, and I was doing everything that you do during a natural childbirth, like, and I was just really, really trying to hold my shit together. And I was thinking about all the books that I had read for childbirth with the natural woman who doesn't shave her arms, and she's got a really hairy vagina. And so that's what I wrote in my post. I wrote hairy vaginas in my post because that's what I do. That's how I write. That's how people respond to me. And the initial reaction was, this is the best thing you've ever written. I love this. And then it was, oh my God, Banana Republic let you do this? And then it was like, I like Banana Republic that they let you do this. And then 2 days later, I get a call, and Banana Republic is not happy about Brokeback Banana at all. And they are demanding that I take the post down. And I said, I'll do that, but I have to tell my audience why. And they said, no. I said, no, I have to tell my audience why. So then they called the CEO of my ad network, Mr. John Battelle. He's an innovator, a tech innovator in the States. And John Battelle is in London having dinner with the Black Eyed Peas. He is mad. And he calls me, and first he's mad that he has to leave his dinner with the Black Eyed Peas. And I was like, whoa, stop. You're gonna name drop with me? I have 1.5 million Twitter followers, John. How many inappropriate direct messages do you have from Lance Armstrong on your phone? Didn't think so. Second of all, he says, how could you do this? How could you put all that money on the line? How could you endanger these jobs? And I took it all in, and then I realized, well, wait a minute. Who didn't tell Banana Republic that this is who they're working with? Does Banana Republic not know who I am? And it went back and forth for days on what was going to happen, and they finally came back and said, could you just remove the part about the hairy vaginas? So I took those 2 words out, and they were fine. But those 2 words are responsible for why sponsored content from that day forward had to be approved by the brand. The brand got to come in and change your voice. That's my fault. I'm apologizing for that, but I happen to be responsible for a few things on the internet. You may have seen that I was a question on Jeopardy, or an answer on Jeopardy. When you lose your job because of your website, you're deuced. This is my mother's proudest moment in life. So what happened when all of this sponsored content, no one's reading anything, there was this Wild West. Content creators sprouted up everywhere. You could make money. You could write about your life, you can post pictures about your life, and then post stuff for brands, and you can make money. And everything started to look the same. It was this Wild West of people just starting Instagram accounts and starting Pinterest accounts. But it's more kind of like this Wild West. This is what it looked like. And this was in 2011 when all of this happened, and it's 2017 now. How many more content creators are there? 20, 30 times more, 100 times more? And when anybody ever comes and they say, you know what? I've been blogging for 5 years. It's like, really? Really? I've taken shits that have been online longer than you've been online. Like, don't come talking to me about how long you've been online. And these brands come to these content creators and they say, the most important thing that you have to do, make sure that what you do is authentic. What does that word mean anymore? If you are manufacturing an experience, if you are basically creating something to sell, how is that authentic? Where is the authenticity in that moment? It doesn't exist. No one is able to show the dirty side of the room anymore. And what has happened, all these content creators are competing with other content creators who all have DSLR cameras. They all have tripods. They all have rooms with lights. And so what has happened is everything is starting to look the same. So we have the overhead coffee shot. And here's the thing. I have been in Montenegro now for 4 days, and I have not taken a photo of my cup of coffee. So was I ever really in Montenegro? I don't know. No. But this is the classic shot of the latte. That's how you take a photo of a cup of coffee. Then there's the disembodied hand holding the ice cream cone. And I told my friends, I said, if I ever post a picture like this, I want you to come to my house and I want you to beat me over the head with a fucking bat. I hate this photo. It happens all the time. And I'm sure some of you have probably posted this photo and I forgive you, but it just drives me crazy. And then there is the overhead shot of the food. Now, here's the thing. You're having dinner with your friends and you're making your friends starve because you're arranging the food and then taking the picture. It's like, let your friends eat their goddamn meal. Like, stop. Let them eat their meal. And then there's this weird phenomenon where people are taking photos of their legs. What are they doing? All this says to me is I have a lot of time to take a photo of my legs. That's how much privilege I have. And then the worst part of this is the happy family photos. And I'm here to tell you that to get a single one of these, they had to take 700 shots of that little snotty-nosed kid who is screaming and throwing a tantrum and is covered in whatever he had to eat that morning. And they are gritting through their, oh, do I have to throw my baby in the air? I do. Oh. Authenticity is a fraud. Authenticity is a commodity to be bought and sold, and you are no longer a user or an audience member. You are a consumer of authenticity. I happen to know that authenticity is a fraud. At the end of my contract with my ad network, I was required to write 3 posts about Ford Motor Company. I've never said that out loud. Oh no. Ford Motor Company, they said, we want you to get in the car with your kids. Okay, so get in your car with your kids and go to a destination and play a word game while you're doing it. Now, first of all, I don't get in the car with my kids unless I have to get in the car with my kids. Like, I will take you to school and then just get out. Second of all, I don't play word games with my kids. I never once sat on the floor and played blocks with my children. So this is not what it looks like when we are in the car together. This is what it looks like when we're in the car together. And by the 3rd post, I had to do 3 of these posts. I am manufacturing these outings with my children. And by the 3rd post, I was just like, what am I doing? Like, this is ridiculous. I am validating the fraud. This is what I'm doing for a living. And here's the thing. I've had a lot of success during my years as a blogger. You know, I wrote a New York Times best-selling book. I've won numerous awards. I have been invited to the White House when Obama was there twice. I've traveled the world. My divorce was covered in the New York Times, the Huffington Post, the local news. I've had people find my hotel room and show up at my hotel room door, stalkers. I have the teachers of my children read my website. I have been called into the principal's office because of my website. And for 17 years, I have endured more than anything this.
You've got this scary lantern-jawed, papier-mâché, giant head look going on, like you're dying of cancer, which I hope you do. Maybe it's because the only person who really cared about your welfare was your ex, and look how you screwed that up. It's clear from your blog that you're just a bottomless sponge of need and desperation. I hope your kids sue you for every penny you ever made, because they'll need it for the therapy they'll have to pay for having you as a mother. Yeah, get over yourself. You're a blogger, not a nurse, not a teacher, not a therapist. not anyone who has devoted their life to actually helping people. You're a self-serving idiot who is pouring your children's lives all over the internet for the sake of fame and greed. You are a pitiful piece of nothingness.
And those were just the emails from my mom. She should have been a mommy blogger. I took a 2-year break when all of that was over. And I could endure all of that and do this for another 17 years, but I had to stop with the way it was going. Because in that last day, that last post, when my children, I'm trying to get them in the car to go do that post, and my then 5-year-old looks up at me and she has got tears streaming down her face, and she says, "Mama, please don't make me get in the car. Please don't make me do it." I felt like a fraud. My child had been written into my contract, and that felt like exploitation. They now call this native advertising because it's so much easier to swallow, except that it should be called native advertising with reluctant children. Because of all the outtakes, the 700 outtakes of the kid acting up, those outtakes are better than the photos of the kids not acting up. So I've come back to blogging, and people have asked me, well, what's different? And I think that this is an important story. These are important photos to share. A happy family is not a bad thing. I'm not going to judge you if you like to drive with your children. But I think it's just as important to know that you're not alone in moments like this. And if a brand can understand that being a part of this conversation is valuable, that helps us, that helps our children, who right now are growing up not knowing where a real story begins and where the ad ends. This conversation still needs a voice, and I'm still really goddamn good at it, and so are many of us. And fuck them if you can't say hairy vaginas. Thank you.
Okay, so I was very nervous. Now, when I wanted to get up on the stage. One important thing you didn't say, and that's why I think we would all connect, is that first, showing that you are vulnerable actually makes you more human, and then people connect with you in a more personal way. But maybe what's more important, you didn't mention it here, and we didn't also, that you are coming from a Mormon family.
Yes.
And we are coming from a traditional families here. This is like a very traditional area. And going out, and when you started blogging about your family's issues, I remember I read somewhere that you were not aware that your family might read that. So what happened when they did?
So when I started my website, I didn't think that more than 12 people would read it. And nobody knew what a blog was. I was really coding it by hand and uploading it to an FTP server. My mother didn't have an email address. No one was going to read it. And so I celebrated our very backwards nature as a family. I left the Mormon church. I'm the only one in my family who left the Mormon church. And the day after September 11th, I had a few martinis and wrote a diatribe about how if the Mormon prophet had told Mormons to fly a plane into a building, they would. And that was the day that my brother Googled my website. And he called my mother and he called my father, and after my father said that I was a disgusting creature who had succumbed to the dark side, my family didn't speak to me for about a year.
But they do now.
They do now, because I have children and I have access to the children. I will withhold access to the children.
Okay. I think we all have our own issues with our families, but it's good that you can always come back to it and have actually a great relationship with them. I understand your mom is taking care of your girls right now, right?
Yes, my mother is taking care of my kids right now, and I think what they realized is I have my father's sense of humor and my mother's ambition, and they're like, well, we created this mess. She's us. And my mother actually gives seminars in the Mormon church about maintaining good relationships with those who have left. So it's been a good experience for everyone involved.
Okay. That's great. You wrote a book about postpartum depression, and it was best-selling. Can you say something about it? The book?
The book is called It Sucked and Then I Cried. I did not enjoy being pregnant, and then my insomnia was what landed me into a hospital 7 months after my daughter was born. And I was really, really scared to reveal that on my website because I thought I was going to be written off as the crazy lady with the blog. And I got to a point and I told my husband, I said, if you go to work today, I'm not going to be here. I'll be dead when you come home. So we checked myself into the hospital and I wrote blog posts on a piece of paper. And he went home that night and put it in my website. And that was the highest grossing traffic day in the history of my website.
Okay, but apart from the terrible people who send you all those crazy notes, I want to beat them every time I hear that part, you also have lots of support from your audience.
Tremendous support. It was the support of my audience. It was women who were writing me emails, strangers, saying, I experienced the same thing. You know, what you're feeling is normal. You're not alone. And this outpouring of support from strangers who had connected with my writing, it was their encouragement that made me seek help. And I absolutely credit my audience with saving my life.
Okay, so how did you feel at times when Forbes listed those as a top 100 website for women, and you were one of the 30 most influential women in media, 25 places after Oprah?
I know. I was ahead of Soledad O'Brien, in case anybody knows who that is. When I saw that, I mean, I really do feel out of place. I mean, the celebrity that I have enjoyed is very small. You know, I have 1.5 million Twitter followers, but I'm not a household name. And so when I was in a list with those names, I was like, oh, this actually has an impact. I mean, I lost my job and I lost my family, and maybe this does actually have real world impact. But it was an amazing accomplishment. It felt good.
Do you feel scared about that much influence?
I don't, you know? No? I don't, no. I think what I have noticed is like telling this side of the story is really, really important. And if anything, I take it very seriously, and I take my relationship with my fans very seriously.
Do you have like other bloggers communicating with you regarding their authenticity issues?
Oh, absolutely.
Or wishes?
Yes, it's a huge problem because now it used to be that you could just say sponsored by. Then it was include a picture of the object in your post, and then it was include a picture of your child holding the product. And that's when all of my colleagues around the world, we were emailing each other saying, what do we do? And I was like, we get out. We get out. We basically all had to strategize an exit plan.
Does anybody from the audience have any questions? Or are you all confused?
Is it on? Yeah. Hi, and thank you for a great talk. I have a question regarding your kids. I'm free-time mom, so also in online business, and I'm interested, where do you set the line? Where is enough for kids to be involved with what you do?
So people think that I reveal everything. People think that my entire life is online, when in reality, I write about 5% of what goes on. And when my older daughter was about 5, I started revealing less and less and less about her. She's 13 now. She reads everything that I write. And my 7-year-old, I've written less and less and less about her. Their notion of privacy is really, really different than our own. And in fact, my 13-year-old begs me to write about her more now. And is like, put this on Instagram, Mom. And I'm like, you look ridiculous. I don't think you want me to. You know, there is a fine line, and you have to you have to sit with yourself and go, are they going to be okay reading this in 10 years? And it's a very serious question.
Anybody else? In the meantime, how do you handle those trolls? I mean, it's very annoying, and I guess it hurts, right? What do you do? How do you cope?
During a particularly difficult period, my grandmother has just died. I got shingles. I don't know if you guys know what shingles is. I had checked a friend into rehab, and at that time, the hate was pouring in. People were just angry at me. So I took pages, like 150 pages of bad comments, and I stuck them in a WordPress template, and I surrounded it with Google Ads. And I called it Monetizing the Hate. And in 5 days, I made $8,000.
Nice.
And I donated it to an organization that works with mental health issues.
Oh, that's it. Ivan?
Hi, I'm Ivan. I actually do a lot of native advertising on our tech blog, so thank you for the great insight. I'm interested, in the region we don't have a lot of mommy or parent bloggers that much. We do have, the focus currently is on, let's say, youth influencers, right? So teens and maybe college students that have a lot of YouTube subscribers, et cetera, et cetera. And one thing that worries me and a lot of my colleagues is, while you might have the life experience and be mature enough, and other mommy bloggers or parent bloggers might be more mature and understand what's going on, these kids are still kids. And advertisers and brands and agencies are exploiting them to a point. What worries me is, how do we protect them as people? Because I'm not sure what happens in 2 or 3 years when they've grown up as influencers and might not be able to get out at the right moment.
Or they don't have any other options after, let's say Vine. Vine completely disappeared. People were making millions of dollars on the platform Vine, and it was gone. So what do those kids do at this point? So they're really good at making jokes on Vine. What job do they get after that? That's partly, I feel, a responsibility to try to bring in these brands and say, what you're doing is wrong. And those of us who are powerful enough and have the most influence, I think we have a responsibility to these children and these teenagers to fight on their behalf and to advocate for better standards.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was, I would say, a big problem with all the YouTubers and all the kids who are doing it now. They definitely need some kind of help in terms of preserving their own authenticity.
Yes.
That's big here. Anybody else? Okay. How do you stay so brave? That's what I had to ask. Really, because it's. I don't get much of the hate, just a little bit, but I get very stuff every time I see that. I mean, I know you are.
I take a lot of helium. I'm very well medicated, and I see a therapist on the regular. I see a therapist and a psychiatrist. I have a lot of help.
Okay. And the girls, they probably don't know, or they do know some of the hate that goes towards you.
I've protected them from that until they're ready to fully comprehend it. There's some stuff that they should not read. Some stuff that I shouldn't read, but I've read it. There's stuff written about them that is devastating. Yeah.
So, are you prepared for the time when they will be seeing all of that?
I am prepared for that. The only reason that I'm prepared for that is the worst thing that could possibly happened with my kid. She came to me one night and she said, I really need to talk to you and you're going to be really, really mad at me. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did she see? What did she see? And I took a deep breath and I said, what's going on? And she said, please don't be mad, but I believe in God. And I said, you do? She's like, are you mad at me? I said, no, I'm not mad. But I said, you know what, I'll pray with you, that's fine. But she reads everything that I write. And she follows me on Instagram, she follows me on Facebook, she sees the things that are written, and she sees the way that I deal with it. And I've said this to her, all of that stuff that's directed at me has everything to do with the person that's doing it. It has nothing to do with me. That person has got some unresolved issue in their life. And the best thing that I can possibly do is to go, you know what? If it makes you feel better for 5 minutes to call me a name, I'm going to give you that 5 minutes. And just making peace with that.
It needs lots of strength from your side. Cope with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where the drugs come in.
The helium. Okay. And your daughter, Letta, right? She wanted to have her own Instagram account.
She wanted her own Instagram account, and you have to
Call
be
it
13.
Deuce Junior.
She wanted an Instagram account, and she wanted to call it Deuce Jr., and I was like O.J. Simpson's son saying, I want an O.J. Simpson Jr. Deuce, you know. I was like, no, you have to be 13. I made her wait. All of her friends had Instagram accounts for like 3 years before she did. And now she's on it, and, you know, she's really good. She's got a great eye. Yeah, I'm very proud of her. Yeah.
Genes.
It's in the genes, yeah.
Okay. Let's go back to the business side, right?
Okay.
You probably don't earn that much money now like you did when you were working with the agency, like millions and millions.
Millions of dollars, yes. I now manage my own, I don't work with an ad network, I manage my own relationships with brands. There's some really solid brands who really trust that I'm going to treat them well and treat their brand well. So I have these relationships and I'm negotiating all the contracts now.
Okay. Do they have problems with your authenticity?
They don't. They can't. I'm basically like, this is what you're getting. And my audience does not tolerate sponsored content very well. My audience has been reading me for 17 years.
Yes.
My audience is like 70 years old. So it's a different relationship than what influencers are dealing with now.
And where do you think that goes in terms of the influencer marketing? How is it going to develop? I know where we are now with the dogs and cats and raccoons. Where do you think it will go? I mean, I don't think it should stay like this.
It shouldn't stay like this. It's not a sustainable model. I see this all the time, especially on Instagram and on YouTube. You have these families who are living their entire life on YouTube or on Instagram. Every trip they go on, every meal they make, every time they go out to dinner, they take pictures of it and write about it and document it on every social channel. And I want to pull them aside and say, you can't sustain this. One, you're going to get divorced. That's going to happen. And your children are all going to end up in therapy. It's just not a sustainable way of living life, because at some point you're like, I just want to live my life. I don't want to have to document it.
But it's also a perspective of the reality TV.
Yeah, it is.
Same thing, and it never lasts forever.
And look what happened to America because of reality TV. Yeah.
I think we do have the same reality TV disease here.
Yeah.
It's a global phenomenon. Okay. Questions?
Hi, my name is Ivana Maric. I'm political criticist or analyst from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I understand how it feels when you say or write something that people don't want to read or hear. But, they are rather hearing some good news and compliments and so on. And it's really great what you are doing. And what is my question actually is, was it worth it? Really, you didn't have a nice life. I mean, I assume you are satisfied with your life, but it was hard, really, for your children, for your family, and everything. Would you recommend, you mentioned your daughter or some young girls to go on your foot, or maybe would you recommend them to put a picture that you already mentioned, food and happy family and so on? Because it was not easy way. Would you recommend it, or would you choose it again if you have a possibility to coming from the beginning?
Would I do this again? Absolutely. I wrote every month when my first daughter, every month I wrote a love letter to her for the first 5 years of her life. And every single month I wrote a love letter to her. And I put it into a book. It's actually a book. And I look back at what I wrote, and I have my daughter's childhood in my hands. I have those stories that I've written down. And I wish that I had done that for my second child. But I go back into my archives and I read the stuff that I've written, and I'm like, I have this chronicle of my life that my kids get to read. What I would give to know what my mother was thinking when I was 5 and when I was 10. What I would give to know how she felt about being a mom. So what I think what I'm doing is giving them a really invaluable gift. Both of them say that they want to be writers, and I'm like, no. But I absolutely love the life that I have lived. It has so many variations of color and pain and joy, and it's just what life is, and wouldn't do anything different.
Nice. So you stopped blogging for 2 years because of the sponsored brand control over your life. Let's call it control. But you went back. Why?
Why? So I stopped writing, literally just stopped writing. I was 15 years into it, and about 2 months later, I realized that I downloaded my brain onto a screen every day, and it was a way of working through pain and, problems and challenges. And here 2 months later, when I haven't sat down a single day to do any of that, I realized that it was really terrible for my mental health. And I didn't write for another year and got into one of the worst depressions of my life. And I thought, the first step out of this depression is to start writing again. And it completely changed everything. Like, I've completely done a 180 from the darkness that I was in because I'm writing these stories again. And because I don't have to worry about pissing off Ford Motor Company. I don't have to worry about that ever again. I get to be as awful as I want to be, and there's a joy in that reminds me of when I was 25 years old when I started, in 2001, when I didn't think anybody was going to read it.
So you basically worked for a startup company before the dot-com bubble burst, and that's when your boss or the colleagues found out that you were speaking about them, writing about them.
Yes. I didn't think anybody was reading it. I didn't mention the company by name. I never mentioned a coworker by name. And in fact, the coworkers were helping me write stories about other coworkers, and they all knew about it. And an anonymous person sent an email to all the vice presidents in the company and CC'd me on it. And I was sitting at my desk when I got it, and I couldn't breathe. And then about 10 minutes later, you could hear the laughter going down from the VP's office, and one of them came out and said, "Dude, you totally got him right, man. He does talk that way." And I was like, okay, they get my humor. And then the next day I came to work, and all of my stuff was in a cardboard box. And they were like, "Nope." And they walked me to my car.
Okay, so today we have lots of companies that actually direct their employees in terms of what can they put on social media, or even if they write a blog. Do you see
That's my fault.
What would you recommend to both the employees and the bosses in terms of how far can you go? Where is the line where you can control somebody else's presence online?
That's a really good question, because there are so many different platforms.
Yeah.
And you may be writing on Facebook thinking that you're only talking to your family or only talking to your friends. not knowing that your boss is seeing everything that you're writing. That's a good, my advice to everyone is do not write about work on the internet, period. Don't do it. From experience.
But it's not only about work, it's about also some other things that do not reflect values of your company, right?
Yes. People are being fired over tweets. They're being fired over Facebook posts about politics, about culture. And it's a really weird line to walk with that. Someone was fired over the weekend for making a racist comment about a Japanese man who won the Indy 500. And he was fired immediately because the backlash was so swift. And he wasn't doing it as an employee. He was doing it on his own Twitter account.
Yeah. But he's presenting his company in that way.
You got to be very careful.
Okay, anybody else? Any questions? See anything here? Okay. So, from the authenticity perspective, all the makeups, all the clean rooms, all the arranged food, and so on. I'm a big fan of the recipe, the tasty. I'm just like
those are great videos.
Time on it. What if that disappears?
What if that disappears?
Yes, because we all got connected to the puppy videos and pictures and cats and food and I do not understand. I mean, I don't want to think about how do they earn money, especially the tasty, the recipes.
Yes.
But if that disappears and we are all addicted to it, or actually probably cannot disappear while we are addicted to it, who is sponsoring that? And is that going to be bigger?
It'll be much bigger. I mean, wouldn't it be great if we all just went back to reading books? That would be an amazing thing if we would just sit down and read a book. But it's so much easier to flip through cooking videos, just one after another after another. And it is a wave, as Max talked about yesterday. And are you going to ride that wave? And are you going to be a nowist? I think it's really important to stay, if you work in this industry especially, you have to be on top of every technology and every trend in order to navigate it. And as for consumers, you are consumers of this. You're not just users. You're consuming this. And you are being directed and you are being targeted and they know you and they have got you.
Okay, but you're not going to YouTube to have videos on your blog.
No, I have
so
no
you're not riding that wave. You have to start.
I'm going to write another book. Like, what do I think I'm doing? I'm going backwards.
What's your next book about?
My next book is about this depression.
What's your goal with that kind of book?
That book is to reach out to mostly to reach those who have suffered depression, but even more important than that is to reach the audience of those who don't suffer from depression, but who are married to someone who is, or who have a brother or a sister or a son or a daughter, so that they understand what is going on with their children. Both my brother and sister don't suffer depression, and they have 2 suicidal children. And my hope is that I can help them understand what their children are going through.
Because the mental problem is not something we speak about.
No, it's not. It's still in 2017, there's such a stigma around it.
Questions? Here she comes, and then I think we're up for time.
Is it on? Okay. So I know we have a lot of agencies and marketers here who work on the behalf of brands, and influencer or native or whatever is in the growth here, and the industry is still being shaped. So based on everything you would learn, do you have an advice that you would give to companies, but also to the influencers or bloggers, how to get the industry on the right feet and how to start it right here as it's just starting?
So this is how I approached sponsored content, and this is what I think is really, really important. I worked harder on sponsored content than I ever did on anything else because you have to know what your readers want, your audience. You have to know what you're good at, and then you have to give the brand what they're demanding. You still have those 3 things to balance. And what you have to do is you have to convince your reader, this is, like, I value you, and I'm taking you into consideration. And then you say to the brand, I value this relationship. and then you have to convince the brand, trust me. Those are the three things that I would concentrate on.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we are up. Heather will be around all day if you have any questions that you didn't want to say in front of all the other people.